They say the internet never forgets, but what they don't tell you is that sometimes, the internet doesn't just remember. Sometimes, it rewrites reality in real time. What you are watching right now is not gossip, not speculation, not one of those Abuja whispers that fade by morning. This is one of those moments where power flips, masks fall, and history quietly changes direction while most people are still scrolling. You probably clicked this video thinking, here we go again. Another headline. Another rumor. That's fair. Nigeria has trained us to doubt everything. But today, doubt takes a back seat because the unthinkable has already happened. The man who once stood confidently behind podiums announcing government decisions. The man who personally fronted the legal war against Nnamdi Kanu. The man who signed documents that shaped years of arrests, prosecutions, and detentions. That same man is not at home tonight. He is not in an office. He is not surrounded by aides. As of today, Wednesday, February 4, 2026, Abubakar Malami is sleeping in a DSS cell, not as Attorney General of the Federation, but as a suspect. Let that land properly. This is the same Malami who told Nigerians the extradition was lawful. The same Malami who defended every move of the state with absolute certainty. The same Malami who was once the government's loudest legal voice. Now the system he defended has turned around and placed him in the dock. Not as a witness. Not as a consultant. As defendant number one. And yesterday, Tuesday, February 3rd, the Federal High Court in Abuja became the stage for a scene nobody saw coming. A scene that will be replayed for years. Malami walked into that courtroom, not to argue constitutional law, not to represent Nigeria, but to answer charges. Standing beside him was his own son, Abdulaziz. Father and son, shoulder to shoulder, facing the full weight of the law. The charges were not small. Terrorism financing. Aiding terror groups. Illegal possession of firearms. This wasn't a slap on the wrist case. This was nuclear. Now here's where the irony becomes almost unbearable. For years, IPOB supporters screamed that the wrong people were being hunted. They insisted that while agitators were paraded, the real financiers of violence were being protected. They said Nnamdi Kanu was a scapegoat while powerful figures were shielded. Back then, those claims were dismissed as propaganda. Today, part of the charge sheet seemed to echo the very same accusations. According to the DSS, Malami allegedly refused to act on case files involving known terror financiers when those files were sent to his office during his tenure as AGF. Think about that carefully. The chief law officer of the country. The man with the final say on prosecutions. Accused of sitting on sensitive terror financing files while publicly prosecuting others. If this allegation survives trial, it doesn't just damage Malami, it shakes the foundation of every case he supervised. And that is why social media in the Southeast is on fire right now. The logic many are pushing is simple and dangerous. If the architect of the prosecution was compromised, what happens to the structure he built? If the hunter turns out to be part of the problem, what does that say about the hunt? Inside the courtroom, the tension was thick. Malami and his son pleaded not guilty across all counts. Their legal team moved fast, trying to secure immediate freedom. An oral bail application was made, arguing that they had already spent weeks in DSS custody. It sounded routine. It sounded confident. But the judge wasn't buying it. Justice Joyce Abdul Malik shut it down cold. No paperwork, no bail. Terrorism charges are not playground matters. She ordered both men remanded back to DSS custody until the next hearing. Just like that, hope evaporated. And then came the twist that pushed this case from explosive to outright chilling. This wasn't just about documents and ignored files. Back in December 2025, DSS operatives raided Malami's residence in Kebbi State. What they reportedly found there opened a whole new chapter of questions Nigerians are now asking out loud. A Storm Magnum revolver. Live ammunition. Expended cartridges. Fired rounds. Not licensed. Not declared. Fired. Ask yourself this: why does a former Attorney General have an unlicensed firearm in his home? Why were bullets fired? Who was shooting? At what? These are not questions you want hanging over your name when you're already facing terrorism-related charges. What makes this even more surreal is the law being used. The same Terrorism Prevention and Prohibition Act of 2022, the law that justified Nnamdi Kanu's continued detention, is now the same law tightening around Malami's neck. The symbolism is impossible to ignore. Timing also matters here. Just days ago, Nnamdi Kanu suffered a major setback in court. His application regarding prison transfer failed. His legal team even stepped aside. Momentum was slipping. Then suddenly, this happened. Malami's arraignment didn't just shock Abuja, it breathed fresh life into a movement that many thought was running out of options. And let's talk about the arrest itself. This wasn't random. Malami had just secured bail in a separate EFCC case involving alleged billions. He walked out thinking he was finally free. Waiting outside was the DSS. They picked him up immediately and took him straight in. That level of coordination sends a message. It suggests something bigger than optics. It suggests that certain protections may have expired. But let's not pretend Nigeria hasn't seen this movie before. Big arrests. Loud headlines. Silent endings. The real test is what happens next. Terrorism financing charges are not cosmetic. They come with heavy restrictions and long shadows. By choosing that route, the government has raised the stakes dramatically. February 20, 2026, is now the date everyone is watching. That's when the bail application will be formally heard. That day could decide whether this case becomes historic, or just another forgotten headline. Will Malami walk free? Or will the walls close in further? And more importantly, will this development become the lever that finally cracks open the Kanu case? Right now, one thing is undeniable. A narrative that was mocked for years is suddenly being echoed by the state itself. The man who once held the keys to the justice system is now locked inside it. In Abuja today, tension is thick. Former power players are suddenly very quiet. Because if this can happen to Malami, then the era of untouchables might truly be ending. And if that's the case, Nigeria is standing at the edge of something much bigger than one man's fall.